So there's this real good movie called Go. It's ironic to use for this video. This is a second portion of the effects of corn on the male brain. The first was more so an inception of, how you could say the turn of the century, the very slow, gradual fascination with me, my, I. And the most memorable examples of that in short order would be MySpace, iPod. Those two kind of basis for a new psychological ramification as far as the masses go. So back to the corn, right? Like, that's the thing, especially if you've gone through a period in your life where you've been like, okay, what am I doing? The sun's out, I'm fit, I look good, I smell good, I'm wearing not mask, I'm wearing the costume that would, attract ladies, that would bring in loving connections into my life. And if they didn't love me, we would love our time together, you see. Why am I finding myself in front of this screen? And I've been with many women before. If you can't tell in my tone, I'm speaking like if one were to take this path, right? If you found yourself in that position, or as my brother used to say, you ever been, for those of you who smoke, you ever been smoking a cigarette at like 2 p.m. and you didn't even want to do it? And he was making a point to say sometimes when you are addicted to something, there's little pockets of, like, there's little moments when you're on the threshold because you know that it's not good. And it's like you've gone on the same roller coaster 15 times in a row, and the person next to you just wants you to act like this is it. You know what I'm saying? They got their drink in their hand, or whatever. They're just having the time of their life, and by default, you can't turn up, as it were, like them, because you know exactly what's coming. That's what I'm referring to. So if you found yourself doing that, then that is a serious problem. I'm not here to judge, like I said, what you do, or all this and that. But if you find yourself, you've been with, I don't want to say plenty, because guys get all these ranges and expectations all twisted around. All right, let's say it like this: if you've been a player, if you've had a rotation before, confidently, and you don't stay up all night, just all lovey-dovey, and just you've been heartless. They brought out the dog in you, however you want to term it, and the feeling, not just the sex. See, people think it's just about the carnal flesh part, even though that's probably the bridge to how we enjoy it physically. I like to call them little micro highs associated with female attention. There's and not just the little bullshit dopamine with texting, okay, even though that is partial too. I'm talking about, that physical encounter with a person. I'm gonna take it you are dealing with, good hygiene people, but, the perfume they select to wear, the way they might make you laugh. I'm not being lovey-dovey or Valentine's Day. I'm just saying, there's natural highs that occur in those interactions, and those activate or give off those hormones and those chemicals. You know what I mean? That's why, especially like if you had taken time to get to know a woman, if you didn't smash on the first night, you can usually remember, elements of the first date. You can remember how you felt afterward. If y'all met at a certain location, when you drove, to your next destination or back home, you felt a little high. It's because of that interaction. It wasn't because you ain't hit or, just kind of like, oh, you hit. That whole type of thing is a side effect of the corn thing, because corn rewires a man's brain and tells him that he's exclusively animal, right? And it's even worse if you haven't been in like a this isn't a body count thing. It's more so if you haven't had that formula enough. Well, I guess it is a body count thing. Like if you haven't been in proximity to enough, attractive women to really understand that dynamic, you're always going to put them as, it's like you walk in a shoe store and you're looking at the top row and you think when you go on these sites and all this, that's what that is. But you're watching it for free and you're not engaging with them directly. So, real quick, those micro highs, those little boosts, like if you're in a game and you're running a Sonic or Mario or whatever it is, and you get like a boost, run a little faster. Same concept. You're not getting that organically. So what it's doing to your brain is you're really tricking your brain to lose. And your only gain is to burn out physical energy by way of, the obvious. And you're telling yourself that you got the job done. Even dudes who are experienced and, even they kind of know, like, I mean, all I'm trying to say is it's no comparison. It's nowhere near the same. And we're not talking about just, my life is just so bad and it's been, you start explaining all these astronomical time periods and whatever, dry spells. I'm not talking about that. You do whatever you gotta do. I'm talking about this like it's lifting weights or something. Like it's just another part of your day. And then guys on top of that smoking, all this whatever induced weed and, drinking on top of that. And so, I mean, just being, you're pulling your brain in so many different directions. We're not even talking about the health angle. I'm talking about your conscious thinking, like the composer of your entire physical existence, right? It's what the brain is. You're pulling it in so many different directions, and you're literally paying yourself to lose energy. That's all you're doing. And it's like, I just don't understand how guys get to that point. I didn't say I don't understand how you're not tempted to look at every dynamic of women that you could think, every type of woman that you could think, every characteristic, you could say, type, right? You could literally lose yourself in that. And this isn't an age thing, this isn't a race thing, although I will say for younger, I guess teenagers, guys in their early 20s, I can't imagine like functioning with that. It's always been around. It's always been a presence, but the frequency of it, and even younger, when we talk cell phones and tablets and passwords and the average tech savviness of a very young person now, girl or boy, is scary. It's scary. Awesome. It's awesome in the aspect that it's never been done before, but it's like swimming in 12 feet. So corn just, again, it rewires your brain and it hits your confidence and your self-esteem. Now here's the trick with corn. On the doctor medical emblem, right, there's two snakes. There's a reason for that symbol. Won't give you the entire back of that DVD, but it essentially serves to say, if people have a medical condition or they're going through something, if they're getting treatment for it, there's an aspect of it that treats, yes. There's an aspect of it that either, you could call it productive subtraction or it takes away. This is the nature of those two serpents, your whole Harry Voldemort thing. So while that treat or reward is happening, there's a side effect. But think if they would have changed side effect to hazard. Instead, because people, if you really want to know, for instance, Prozac, if people look up potential hazards of Prozac, you'll find it's there, right? They have to do that. But as far as just, you get the reception almost in reverse. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like this is fantastic. However, so your brain already has allegiance to the treating side. Real complicated shit. But those two snakes represent almost like willful deception. Also represents alchemy, a transformation. I like to see corn the same way. I'm not going down the moral angle and all that. I think it could have some, especially if you're a big name. I definitely, in whatever you have signed up to do on camera, I know it has some psychological effects. I'm not gonna dwarf that, but that's not what I'm here to talk about per se. I think at the beginning of this, I said there's a movie called Go with Taye Diggs. There's other people in it too, but Taye Diggs' character, it's a real low budget, kind of crappy movie, but it had a gem in there about ancient Kemetic practice. It was talking about ejaculation. And I'll explain in another video, but I think it's kind of the antithesis to corn, because most guys assume, okay, I'm watching this so that I can, get my rocks off, satisfaction, get one out, however you want to say it. I think that's a terrible formula to follow, because that is what eject. You eject a CD, VHS. You eject, a disc. Eject means to pull out, like I just told you. Expire, burning out. Come out. Pause. But ejaculation is quite the opposite. It's science, and if you think about it cracks me up when people say Kundalini. Kundalini. If you know about Kundalini, it has a lot to do with that faculty. So, but that'll be next. But long story short, fellas, especially if you're watching that stuff and relieving yourself all day, you need to get serious help for that. All right. I don't know the circumstance. I don't know why you found yourself in front of a screen when the sun is shining and there's all kinds of beautiful thighs and breasts and, all that out here. But you plant yourself in front of this screen. I don't understand it, And like I said, if you get to that point and you feel you feel as if you're hooking up with a, new woman, like you have a serious problem. You're in that club. You have successfully been initiated into that club where you need some help, because sure, it doesn't make your lungs black or crush your liver or but it's just not good. I'm thinking about another video I made on here called A Sincere Query for Gen Z. And, you know, we're already at a time now where even approaching, not for everyone clearly, but that is a huge collective eggshell now. Approaching, you know, getting to know, like this very anti-oppositional attitude. This last thing I'm going to say, I would wager to say some dudes even feel like corn is great. And it's not because they watch it. I feel like conceptually they feel like it's good because now they don't have to deal with. And I mean, it's just sick. It's brutal. It's downright pathetic. But just hear me out these last few seconds, because I don't feel this way. But I've made it my mission as I get older to not empathize all the time, but make reason out of why people feel the way they feel. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know why people who live in a nice neighborhood, I know why they wouldn't want, you know, people with a real loud cookout and all kinds of music and shit. I know why they would feel that way. I'm not going to project my ignorance to them and say, you know, all right, well, they hating. That's bullshit. People have to stop doing that. Anyway, I think some dudes, whether it's just cowardice or, you know, they've been burnt when they were in 8th grade and everybody pointed and laughed at them and they cried all weekend, and, you know, I feel like conceptually they feel like corn and the whole AI thing, which is like the Matrix Reloaded of corn. You know what I'm saying? That is, I guess at some point I have to speak about that too, because that is the great point of no return, you know. And I feel like corn has been like gassing dudes up for that, you know, because it's the same formula. All right, so conceptually, I feel like guys are almost like seeking revenge through that. Dudes who, you know, fuck it. Dudes who are normal, who don't think like that. I know you, that may sound strange, you're like, what the hell, but you kind of also, by default, sense what I mean. I'm talking about people who never kissed a girl, never, you know, like extreme examples like that. They feel that, like, by itemizing and roboticizing this process that they haven't been gifted for whatever reason, they see it almost as kind of like entertainment, therapy, pleasure, and an escape. And that is a ugly ass quartet to have to contend with.